Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hello and welcome to another episode of A Day Late and a Dollar Short. My name is Palladium Moores and I'll be your host for the day. Our subject for the day is Revelations Persona, or Persona 1. Quick and the dirty, 8.5 out of 10. This game features a unique and very colorful cast of characters, a fantastic storyline, memorable music, a great combat system that is unfortunately held back by some really unfair difficulty spikes, and by some poor dungeon design. Now, if that's all that you were here for, then, well, take it easy, and thank you very much. Now, for those of you who are here for the full of it, buckle up and let's get this show on the road. First thing I'm going to start off with is that I'm reviewing the PsP version, because we, in the original United States version, did not get the entire second story mode of the Frozen Castle, which is what you're seeing right here. And it's actually a really good story, and a really good story mode. And that also added a unique aspect to Persona, in that it was basically two games in one that had that branching point. And it was, when I actually got to play it years later, it was very well done. I think most of the focus did go into the original storyline, but the Frozen Castle was still a very unique and fun aspect to the game. So yeah, no, and that's one of the reasons I rate story so high. The original story is great too. So you've got two full stories that you can do. So insofar as that goes, it's exciting and amazing, and I don't know if that's where I was going to go with that, but that's what we're going to go with. Now, characters. You have a very unique cast of characters, and they don't always get along. And I think that really helps to add to the character development as these characters learn how to work with each other. And not only work with each other, but actually become friends. It's fun to watch. I really do enjoy it. Now, in this, they each have their own different weapons that they use that adds their own uniqueness, and everyone is capable of using a variety of persona. This is not like Personas 3 and 4, where people are set to persona. No, these guys can all be modified however you see fit, which is going to roll over into combat, which is going to really help to add diversity to the cast and to what they're capable of doing. Everyone has their own unique melee weapon, except Mary, who uses a bow. Their own unique persona list, they can use their own unique guns. And it adds a lot of strategy and depth. And each of those weapons has their own attack ranges. It's the same with a lot of persona abilities too. So that if you have a character who has a lot of frontline heavy stuff, you need them somewhere near the center. Mark's abilities, example. Mark is the guy with the beanie there. He uses an axe that has a fairly narrow range and a shotgun that has a lot of backward reach if you're toward the center. Otherwise, people only hit by the edge of it. So you have to determine the best places, and I bit my tongue, the best places to put these characters to get the most out of their combat abilities. And then you have to do things like making sure your more defensively weak characters, like Marie and the other casters that you can get, are not constantly under fire. And I'll talk about why later in the combat thing, because once again, it's going to seem weird that I then later talk about combat as a con, but it's both pro and con, and I'll get to that here in a little bit. The music in this game really is amazing. It really is just stellar, and that's the one problem I had with the remake for the PsP, is that they remastered a lot of the tunes, and I think that it kind of suffered for that in places. It also, unfortunately, did away with a lot of the things that were recorded for the original soundtrack. For example, at one point, you fight an imp-type enemy who can do a hula dance, and he sits there and he's singing along with the music and he's dancing along with his pom-poms, and then he stops and goes, and he puts them away like he's embarrassed. Those sound bites were taken out from the PsP version, and I think it kind of suffered for it, but overall the music was still extremely well done. So yeah, that's about it for the pros. Now let's move on to the cons. When I say difficulty spikes, I'm not just whistling Dixie, okay? You go from enemies being tough, yeah, but fairly fair. Fairly fair. Wow, that's redundant. To being decently fair to enemies suddenly using Hama and Mudo spells. For those of you who don't know what those are the death spells we see later on. Early on, they weren't as bad. No, that's a lie. Early on, they were worse. Because not only would they do high amounts of damage if they hit you, but then they would add a DOT that continued to do high amounts of damage. And you start seeing these in the second proper dungeon that you can go to in the main storyline. From Toilet Kids! And that's not going to make any sense to you guys. Don't worry about it right now unless you played it. But yeah, no, when the difficulty has its spikes, it really goes from a point to where it's like, okay, I can handle this, to holy shit, my teeth just got kicked in. Now, for people who are vets of the series, we know that we can fuse certain persona that make those moments easier. But for a newcomer, or the first time I played it, it was awful. It was a disaster. And then you get past that area and it goes back down for a while. So those jumps in difficulty really kind of make combat a crapshoot. Especially when one of the things you need to do is talk to as many demons as possible to collect their cards to fuse them. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's... Oh, no, dungeon design. Okay, look, I appreciate the dungeon designs for what they are. Taking place in a twisted version of the school you go to, and... Okay, listen, I say twisted, and that's just going to be... Basically, that's it. If you go to these places, then this otherworldly dimensional energy that's screwing up everything has screwed it up, and it's going to be a twisted version of what it's supposed to be. And that's the theme throughout. But you do eventually get pretty tired of seeing these same backgrounds over and over and over. So, yeah, it kind of takes it away from it. Otherwise, yeah, no, this is an absolutely amazing game. I personally, it's one of my favorites in the Persona series, and probably one of my favorite RPGs in general, but I do have to be fairly objective, and it does have its issues. So, yeah, that's about it for this. Can't think of anything else. This is me. This silence is me sitting here thinking. I was like, "What did I miss? Did I miss anything?" I'll talk about I'll go back to pros, and that's all the equipment you get. Each of the pieces of equipment you have their own attack values, and by that I mean not only attack power, but number of hits per. So if you were a gambler, you could go with something that has, say, 1 through 5 hits, or if you preferred a more solid number of attacks, then you could go with something that has a guaranteed 2 or 3 attacks. And I thought that added a lot of depth. I really think that added to the game's overall feel. And same with the guns, too. Guns have both number of hits, and then you can get different bullets that have different status effects. So you can sacrifice max power for, you know, the ability to put the enemy to sleep when you shoot them. And that was really well done. Now that, I think I'm done rambling about the game now. If you've not played it before, you should probably try to pick up a copy for PlayStation 1. I don't know. I would honestly probably say the PsP version, because the Frozen Castle and that particular storyline is definitely worth it. And it's worth it for people who wanted to play with a different cast of characters than you were forced to on the main. Alright, now I'm done. Now I'm done, I promise. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I really do appreciate you being here. If you liked it, go ahead, poke the button. I'd appreciate it. If you'd like to see more, well, that's what the sub button's for. And with that, I will be seeing you.